Hello and welcome to another video from the only channel that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse, but actually enjoy it. And today's video is going to be about the Ark of the Covenant. Now, I was doing some research for a script that I'm writing for another video, and I came across some information that I felt like I really needed to share with you. I really needed to just stop what I was doing and write a completely different script. But I'm getting farther and farther behind with all of these ideas for videos I'm doing, so I thought, good opportunity to go out once again into the woods with my equipment and try to just wing it. In other words, no script. Just tell you what I've uncovered. And once again, it's religious treachery. An idea that I've had in my head for years and years, which I have discovered is untrue. And it's about the Ark of the Covenant and its relationship to Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark was for the preservation of life. The Bible very clearly says that. And so I thought, well, maybe somehow the Ark of the Covenant was for the preservation of life. And a lot of religions teach things that are somewhat related to that concept. And I think that that's on purpose, but it is not the truth. So I went ahead and opened up the online concordance on my computer, and I typed in the word Ark. Sure enough, it brought me to a whole bunch of entries, like page after page after page of entries using the English word ark. So I clicked on the very first entry, which brought me to the original Hebrew word. Something I noticed immediately is that all of those pages were now gone. We only had a partial page. And the word that was used there is tavah. And tavah is the Hebrew word, or the ancient word, that's associated with Noah's Ark. So I searched down to see if somewhere on this page was something about the Ark of the Covenant, and there wasn't. But there was information that was related to the basket that Moses was put in as a baby. If you remember the story, all of the Hebrew boys are supposed to be killed by order of Pharaoh, and so Noah's sister, or Moses' sister, takes Moses in this basket and places him in the water, and allows him to float down to the daughter of Pharaoh, who rescues Moses. Moses, because of that act, becomes one of the most powerful men in Egypt, and he's saved. Just like the ark saved all of the animals and humans, this ark saved Moses. Now, something that's interesting to me is that a lot of the Bibles, most Bibles, they always translate this word tava as ark when it's talking about Noah's Ark. But when it's talking about the ark that Moses was placed in as a child, it calls it a basket. So for some reason, they're disassociating Noah's Ark from this ark by using two different words. That's like a word trick. It's not, anytime they're doing that, they're trying to mislead you. And I thought from that moment, the fact that they also translate the Ark of the Covenant as an ark has got to be misleading as well. And the reason for this is that ark is not an English word. I mean, when I went to look this up, I thought the original Hebrew word would be something like ark, and that it was a transliteration of some English word. Because in English, we don't call anything an ark. You know, I live right here in the harbor, or by the harbor. They don't have shrimp arks down there, or banana arks. It's banana boats and shrimp boats. And, you know, if it's a box, if you look at the description of Noah's Ark, it was just a box, then, you know, you should be able to have a tackle ark instead of a tackle box, or a jewelry ark instead of a jewelry. But the word ark is not an English word. So they've come up with this strange word that we would all recognize as strange, and they associate it with the Ark of the Covenant and the Ark of Noah. So I went back a page to the word ark, the English word ark again, and I went down the list until I got to the first word that was not about Noah's Ark or the Ark of Moses, but about the Ark of the Covenant. And I clicked on that word, and I was brought to the Hebrew version of the word that gets translated as ark, and that word is aron. Aron and tavah are not related in any way, and I even went so far as to look up the words that were in the Hebrew dictionary, you know, before it, and the Hebrew dictionary that were after it. After both words, there was no association in any of the words that were even close linguistically to either one of these words. So tava and around could not possibly have anything to do with one another. They should not be translated the same way into English. That's the point that's important. And remember, Noah's Ark was to preserve life. For some reason, people want us to believe that the Ark of the Covenant was to preserve something, probably life as well. Now, I instantly knew that these words were not related, but I also knew something else instantly. When I saw that word around, I knew I had seen that word before. And I suspected it was when I was doing research about Moses' brother Aaron, because it seemed his name was around. So I went back, typed into the search box, Aaron, A-A-R-O-N. That's the English name Aaron, which I was suspicious of being the same as this word for the Ark of the Covenant. And I was almost right. The word Aaron is actually around, but in front of that is the two letters A and H, which is Ah. So around is the Ark of the Covenant. Around is Aaron, the high priest, who officiated over all rituals involving the Ark. So there is a very strong connection between Around, the Ark of the Covenant, and Around, the very first high priest, the ruler of the Levites. Now, when I look these words up, you would think that both words would have similar definitions, like the word around means ark and around means, priest of the ark. But that's not the case. Around actually means light bringer. Now, this is another vital clue into figuring out what's going on in the Bible, because I had done research in the past and was able to find out that the word Osiris in ancient Egyptian, the ancient Egyptian word that we get the word Osiris from, means bearer of the eye of enlightenment. And I did an entire video series about that, which led to one particular video, which I'll leave a link to here, called the eye, or the all-seeing eye. That all-seeing eye was created in memorial to Osiris, the bringer of the eye, or the bearer of the eye of enlightenment. In our Bibles, the Hebrew word is Heliel. All of the angels that are mentioned, Gabriel, Michael, and Heliel, their names end in El, because Heliel is an angel, and it's associated with light. It's like the angel of light, and or the god of light. And so there had to be a connection between Aaron and Osiris and Heliel. In our Bibles, the word Heliel gets translated as Lucifer. So we all know who Lucifer is. And so somehow Osiris, Lucifer, and Aaron are closely related. Aaron, and look, we're supposed to think that God really, really loved Aaron, and Aaron was doing what God wanted, and that we were supposed to follow the pattern that's set by Aaron. But that's not what's going on here. If we look back at the history of the Israelites, Moses was sent to get the Ten Commandments. When he went up to get them, he didn't have to do anything. God gave him 2 stones. He provided stones, and he carved the stones using his own finger to write the 10 Commandments on those stones. Those 10 Commandments would have been a written version of the natural law that had been put into mankind from the beginning. So all of those things, don't kill, don't steal, all of that is somehow related to natural law. And I've done a video about that called the 10 Commandments and the Law of Moses. I'll put a link to that here as well. But in any case, Moses went up to get those, and he stayed up there for 40 days. By the time he got down, Aaron had made a golden calf and convinced the people to worship it. So Aaron was getting human beings, or the Israelites, to participate in religion. And one of the biggest laws on those 10 Commandments that that Moses brought down was not to participate in religion. Don't carve any kind of a statue. Don't bow down to it. Don't feed it. Don't do rituals to it. And here they are doing all of that. And it was Aaron that convinced him to do it. We're supposed to think he wasn't involved, but, it says in the Bible very clearly, he's the one that made the calf. So God sends Moses back, because Moses breaks those commandments. He physically breaks those 2 stones. God says, go back up but this time you bring your own stones, because I'm not giving you the stones, and you carve them with your own hand. Now, we're supposed to believe that he brought the stones up and God carved them again with his own finger, but it never says that anywhere. And in fact, it's only in the English version of the Bible where he says he would carve them. And it's only because it's mistranslated by a little bit. In the original Hebrew, it is Moses that had to carve those stones because God would not have anything to do with it. It was the same words. But at this point, we were no longer going to be, Israelites were no longer going to be following God's law. They were going to be adhering to God's law in man's way, because when he came back down, not only did he bring those, he, at least over time, he brought down probably around 600 other laws. And the laws he brought that were attached to the 10, which made good common sense, were arbitrary and nonsensical. They were laws about doing really, really stupid stuff that didn't fit in with reality. And one of those things was they had to build this ark, this araum, this thing that Aaron was to officiate over whenever they were performing rituals. Now, we're supposed to believe that Aaron was a good guy because immediately after bringing the second law down, God says, we've got a law now. We're going to have somebody to be over the law. So who wants to rule over the law? And the tribe of Levi stepped forward. And God says, if you really want to rule over the law, each one of you go grab your brother and your son and sacrifice them. And they did. They willingly did. They killed 3,000 of their own brothers and children in order to get that privilege of being priest over the law. Later in the Bible, God says, I gave you people 2 different laws. I gave you the good law, and he talked about the Sabbath, but also gave you the law that required human sacrifice, the law that no human could live by. And throughout the Bible, God is always giving mankind things that are bad for them simply because mankind demands them. God is not okay with it. It doesn't make him happy for people to be obedient to these religious rituals. And in fact, throughout the Bible, God is just talking about how much he hates the law that the Israelites are participating in. So anyway, Aaron is a bad guy. And in fact, when Moses, at some point, Aaron and his sister Miriam both decide to talk the nation of Israel into overthrowing Moses. They're like, we don't want this guy to rule over us. We want a democracy. We, the people, should pick our ruler. And so, if you're familiar with the Bible, you know that what happened was Miriam got leprosy, and there were all kinds of bad things that happened to Aaron, and a whole bunch of people died. Now, if you ask somebody who goes to church about the ritual human sacrifices that the Levites had to participate in order to become priests, religious people will tell you that Aaron and the Levites killed everyone who was involved with the golden calf incident. But the Bible clearly says that the people who were involved with the golden calf incident would suffer later. They didn't get killed that day because the ones who were involved in the golden calf incidents were the Levites. They were the ringleaders in this thing. Aaron was a ringleader. It's more than obvious he was a ringleader. In every instance where he's given an opportunity to support God and support his chosen ruler Moses, he chooses to try to overthrow him. So anyway, in getting back to the word around, this is the whole point of the video. I discovered that the word around actually means sarcophagus. In the Egyptian language, these rounds are what the mummified bodies of the pharaohs were put in. And in fact, when Jacob had his 12 sons, one of them was, and you all know the story, hopefully, about Joseph. He was sold into slavery into Egypt, where he was able to rise to the position of the second most powerful man on planet Earth, only outranked by Pharaoh himself. So when Aaron died, or when Joseph died, his body was embalmed and he was placed in a sarcophagus. In our English Bibles, it says that his body was embalmed and he was placed in a coffin. But the word that's used there is never used for anybody else in the Bible, because no one else in the Israelite nation, the nation of Israel, because the word that's translated as coffin is actually the word aroun. Aroun means sarcophagus. And if you look at the description of it, the aroun was a sarcophagus. When God gave them the Ten Commandments, he did not make any instructions for putting it in a sarcophagus. But when Moses carved the Ten Commandments, he did have it put into a sarcophagus, because he knew that human beings trying to be gods themselves, trying to determine for themselves what is right and what is wrong, would never work. The day that God gave mankind the law of Moses was the day that he had that law put into a sarcophagus, because from the very beginning, God knew that that law was dead and it would not work. Now, when we get to the book of Hebrews, we get a little bit better insight into exactly what was put into that sarcophagus. Because a lot of people might believe that it was just the Ten Commandments, but the book of Hebrews reveals that they had a golden container of some sort in there with the Ten Commandments. And in that golden container was the arbitrary, nonsensical 600 rules that were put in there along with the Ten Commandments. Aaron's rod was put in there. Remember, Aaron, his rod, was put in there. And manna was put in there. Now, if we go back to the Egyptian empire, we'll see that, like our empire, the gods were Trinitarian. So you had Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Osiris, the father, Isis, the mother, and Horus, the son, and which is basically the same as ours. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, was the Father being the God of government, the Son being the God of resources, of war, the God of the economy, the God of theft, and then there is Isis, who became the God of spirituality. And that's what all trinities are based on: the economy, the government, the economy, and religion. So you've got in Satan's empire, and I've done several videos about this, including the video about the all-seeing eye, that throughout the Bible, the Trinitarian religions are always ridiculed, and their system is ridiculed. That law that was put into the Ark of the Covenant was the governmental system of the Israelites for hundreds of years. They toted that thing around the desert for 40. Aaron's rod was put in there because it represented religion. Remember, Aaron's tribe was the one that decided they wanted to be the rulers of the religion. So at some point, each of the tribal leaders set their staff up, and the next day, Aaron's staff had sprouted leaves and ripe almonds. And so apparently for a long time, that rod would produce almonds. And if God was happy, they were sweet almonds. And if God was angry, they were bitter almonds. But that rod, the rod that represented Aaron's rulership over religion, was put in the box. Now, how was the economy put in there? Well, that was the manna. The Egyptian economy, like our own, was based on who could acquire the most money, the most resources, the most stuff. And always, the economy has always been based on you have some stuff. There's an imaginary line here. If you want more stuff, you've got to go across that line and bring it back. So that's war. When those Levites were told to sacrifice their sons and their brothers It was about war, ritual human sacrifices that we're involved in today. So that manna from God could not be used that way. You could not acquire more manna than anybody else because it rotted after a day. You couldn't sell it to anybody because everybody had it. It was equally given to everybody. Unlike human economy, where those who are willing to do what it takes get more stuff, and those people who are not willing to do what it takes get nothing. So inside that box was the economic system, the political system, and the religious system of the empire. The reason it was a sarcophagus is because from the very moment that that law was given to mankind, it was understood that it would die. And in a very real way, that law, not just the law of the Jewish people, not just the Christian laws, which are based on laws of the Jewish people, not even just religious law. All economic law, all political law, all religious law is about to be done away with forever as God's kingdom takes over rulership of the earth and Satan's empire is exiled from the earth forever. The Ark of the Covenant was a coffin. Joseph was embalmed and put into an around. The Ark of the Covenant was an around. If you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.